What is going on, guys? It is Trifecta J here, and this is episode 1 of my new Madden 16 franchise. And of course, as you can see, we're going to be taking over the San Diego Chargers as an owner, as I do want to be able to rebuild a new stadium. And the plan right now is definitely to stay in San Diego. But now looking at some prospects early on scouting, we see Keyshawn Lindley looks to be a pretty good prospect at quarterback. Marquand Reddick, a left end in the 3-4 system, which of course we do run. Now these are the stats from the first season as I just simmed through, so we can go ahead. We don't have to go through that first season where we were not going to be very good, and go ahead and move in to me getting my players and moving on. So Melvin Gordon had an alright rookie year, only 3.5 yards per carry, so not great, and he did suffer an injury halfway through the season. Keenan Allen with a pretty good year, almost 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Phillip Rivers was sacked a good bit, with King Dunlap and Joe Barksdale giving up a combined 20 sacks, Orlando Franklin giving up 6. In terms of defense, we look Eric Weddle with over 100 tackles, Jaleel Aday, I believe is how you say it, 95 tackles, 3 more with 90 plus tackles, and Denzel Perryman, the rookie out of Miami, who appears to be a very nice piece moving forward. Melvin Ingram with a breakout year of sorts, over 10 sacks. And then interceptions, we had 2 players with 3 in Patrick Robinson and Jason Verrett. A look at the MVP of the season is Russell Wilson on the 14-2 Seattle Seahawks, and Pete Carroll is your coach of the year. Offensive player of the year in the AFC, surprisingly, is actually Ben Roethlisberger, as Russell Wilson does not win that. Paul Posluszny wins the defensive player of the year. Offensive rookie of the year is TJ Yeldon, with Melvin Gordon finishing 8th overall, and defensive player of the year is actually Bernard McKinney, with Denzel Perryman finishing 2nd. He had a very nice year for a rookie. I look forward to seeing what he does in the future. Now we look at the Pro Bowl teams. We did not have too many Pro Bowlers, I believe 1 or 2 total, with one of them being Melvin Ingram, who of course you saw had 10.5 sacks, so a very good year. Hopefully continue that success after a slow start to his career as an outside linebacker, pass rusher in this 3-4. Pernell McPhee, Junior Gillette at outside linebacker, and then we actually went 5-11 in that first year. I didn't actually show that, I forgot to do that, but we look at the playoffs and postseason. The Jaguars actually make it along with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so a couple of surprises. And then a look at the divisional round, a blowout by Arizona against the Coach of the Year and MVP of the NFL. And then the Super Bowl matchup is the Bengals versus the Cardinals, and the Bengals would go on to win the Super Bowl. We move into our re-signings in the offseason. David Johnson, the fullback / tight end, we offer him just under $1 million a year, and he would go ahead and take that. Now, wide receivers, Herndon and Malcolm Floyd. Malcolm Floyd was an interesting person. He's 6'5", but definitely getting up there in age, and we would go ahead and decline that. One of our bigger free agents in the offseason was Ladarius Green. Eric Weddle, also a big one. Joe Barksdale at right tackle. And we would offer Ladarius Green $4 million a year over 4 years. Jaleel Aday gets around $1.4 million per year, and he would accept that contract offer. Now, the next people we're going to look at is Eric Weddle, and he wanted nearly $10 million over 5 years for a 31-year-old safety. I was not going to do that. I offered him $16 million over 2 years. He declined that, so I put the franchise tag on him. Keep him for 1 year, see how he regresses as he gets up in age, and just see where he is next year. So we look at our overall players. We ended up signing David Johnson back, Ladarius Green, CJ Walton, the center, who might start next year. He's not the most talented guy, but we don't have a ton of options. Jaleel Aday, like I said, would sign, and we franchise tag Eric Weddle. A look at some of the stories of the offseason. Tom Brady retires, Mike Vick retires, Steven Jackson, Roddy White, Steve Smith also retires, Frank Gore. A lot of very talented players who are leaving the NFL. One of them was actually Antonio Gates. I don't think I showed it here. And a couple of players did get the franchise tag put on them. So Antonio Gates is now gone, so it's definitely good that we got back Ladarius Green, as we'll need another tight end with none on the roster now other than Ladarius Green. Moving into free agency, Brandon Mebane, Donald Penn, a couple of older players who can fill some holes. Chris Matthews, the 6'5" receiver who broke out in the Super Bowl a few years ago. We offered him a contract. a lot of receivers who could be depth options, not necessarily starters, including Jerron Brown, who I feel could be a very nice receiver for us. We still have Stevie Johnson and Keenan Allen, but he will be a nice other piece. Mike DeVito gets put on our board. He would be the left end in our 3-4, and I feel like he could be a very solid piece. And if you notice these contracts, I didn't offer any player over a 2-year deal. So even the players that we're getting, it's not a huge deal. You can see Clifton Gathers, Deion Jordan, who has really struggled so far in his career after being the number 3 overall pick. Hopefully he can turn that around. We also pick up Donald Penn and Mike DeVito, 2 very good veteran signings. A look at the final players, we pick up Brandon Boykin, Darren Waller, Jerron Brown, and a few other players. And we do not get Marquise Sproul, who would have been a depth option, and Chris Matthews, who I really wanted to get. We also do get O'Brien Schofield and Terrence Cody, along with Brock Farine, some depth options. I really like the signing of O'Brien Schofield. He could be a nice backup pass rusher, as I would like to rotate those to keep our pass rushers fresh. Now we look at some draft stories. DJ Young, he was a player going into the draft that I really was looking at after seeing this. I knew he had some nice speed and some nice ability, and with Stevie Johnson maybe not being a part of our future, he could be a really good outside receiver along with Keenan Allen, and then find a slot receiver to go along with that. Marshawn Austin ran the slowest 40 out of any player at the combine. Deontay Parker looks like he'll have very low catching if he was a player that we targeted. Then center Seth Stallworth, he's a late round prospect who looks to be very good. The Cowboys would sign Lamar Miller. Jarrell Freeman goes to the Raiders. The Broncos get Kobe Fleener along with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So an interesting signing by them. As you can see there, 5.5 years. Sam Bradford actually goes back to the Rams, so that's an interesting deal. Not for a whole lot of money. Victor Cruz to the Falcons. And the Bears ended up signing, I believe, DeMarcus Ware along with Haloti Ngata going to the Raiders. DJ Young, like I said, 4.43 speed, so really good. And he's a player that I really wanted to target early in the draft, as we did have the 5th overall pick. Trevon Lewis, another player. He is absolute combine star. Great vertical, great 40. Looks to have very nice agility. Maybe a little raw as a receiver. Does have very good, spectacular catch at 6'1". So a look now at the AFC West and their signings. Janoris Jenkins also goes to the Raiders, as they signed a lot of players. J.R. Sweezy, Kyrie Robinson, just a ton of players signed. Also, Dwayne Allen, one signing that I found pretty funny is the Broncos signed Trent Richardson, which is very interesting. Haloti Ngata, like I said earlier, Matt Moore, Chris Banjo also goes to the Raiders. So the Raiders were very active in the free agency, also signing Russell Okung. But now we will go ahead and go into the NFL draft, as this is where I really wanted to build our team. We signed a couple of older players, and this is where we'll get some of that younger talent to maybe step in after those guys leave. A quarterback goes number 1 overall to the Eagles, another quarterback to the Browns, and then the Rams take a defensive tackle. So with our 5th pick, we're looking to trade down, and we'll actually just drop 1 spot to pick up a 3rd round this year from the Giants. And they would go ahead and pick DJ Young, a player that I really wanted, but I did not want to take with that 5th pick. And so we'll actually look to trade down once again, picking up a 1, 2, and 7 for our 1st round pick from the Washington Redskins. And we'll drop to pick number 13. So the Redskins would pick a wide receiver, so another one off the board. A tight end to the Colts. The Raiders are on the clock, and they take a left tackle. The Saints take a left end trying to bolster their defense. And the Texans take a defensive tackle, right outside linebacker, to the Ravens. Now Tage Wilson, another combine star who I really liked. He was the only 1st round projected corner in the entire draft, as this was a very weak, as it appeared, cornerback class, and he would go on to be a very solid pick, maybe a little bit of a reach. Brian Hurd, a guy I also really liked, but I would move him to an end position in the 3-4. He's a 1st round prospect. Trevon Lewis, once again, 4.3 speed, 43-inch vertical. He looks to be a very talented player, especially a freak athlete. So with the 22nd pick, the Jaguars would take Brian Hurd. So right here, I'm thinking I only have one player that I really want to get in this 1st round left, and that is Trevon Lewis. So I would send Brandon Flowers, our 2nd round pick, and a 4th round pick to the Steelers for their 1st round pick, and we would go ahead and pick on Trevon Lewis, the 6'1" wide receiver out of Ohio State. Another good pick, 97 speed, 87 spectacular catch, maybe a little raw in terms of hands and route running, but as a player, he looks to be very solid. Now, after trading up, I thought I wanted to trade back down, try and recoup some of the picks that we traded away. And so at number 44 overall, we would go ahead and look at some of the available prospects. I did have some guys I was targeting, and we would end up picking a player that I was really high on. I thought he had some nice traits, especially after missing out on Brian Hurd, and that player is Marquand Reddick. He had a pretty good combine, really good as a block shedder, so a good run stopper, also has some nice power moves, and a better athlete than you might expect from a 3-4 defensive end, and from what I saw initially. Now to the 69th pick, we'll look at some different prospects here, and one of the players that I was really looking at here and keeping an eye on was Keyshawn Lindley. However, he was a 4th round prospect, so we would end up taking Ryan Taylor. He looks to be a raw as a pass blocker, but also very talented. And then with the 70th pick, which we had back-to-back, we would take Marshawn Austin, who was the 11th overall player in terms of overall in this draft. That looks to be a very solid pick. So at pick 78, Boatwright goes, a quarterback. So we'll look at the overall board. Keyshawn Lindley, a player that I really wanted to get. He is now the 2nd quarterback on the board after the 49ers picked Spencer, a guy who was undrafted according to the ratings that I scouted. And then we're looking through the next couple of picks, and Raphael Bush, for some reason, the Titans pick him. So here we're definitely trying to trade up, as the Patriots would trade up with the Buccaneers, and we will trade with them. Trying to get this pick, we offer a 3 and 2 7s. And you already know who we're going to be taking, Keyshawn Lindley. He actually ran a 4.43 at the combine, A throw power, good throw accuracy, short, good throw on the run. Looks to be a very good athlete, and he is a solid pick, 15th overall in the draft. 92 speed, 93 throw power, 87 throw on the run, not great play action, really good short accuracy, and all right medium and deep. So now we are at pick 101. Our first pick outside of the top 100, looking at some of the different players that we could go after. And the player that I would end up picking, I didn't know a whole ton about him other than he had one of the best combines, and that he had a really good press and really good man, and it's another really good pick. 36 overall, 97 speed, 87 man, and good press to go along with that. Now into the 6th round, all the players that I was looking at were taken, and I was being offered some 4th round picks for my 6th round pick, so I would go ahead and do that for the next year's draft. Now at pick 197, we're looking, and I just wasn't paying attention. I was trying to sim because there was a lot of space in between our picks, and we ended up taking a left guard who actually ended up being not very good. Now we look at our draft as a whole. I thought it was a very solid draft, a lot of very talented players, a lot of top 100 picks, so you would expect a lot of very good players, of course. Now we look at the overall of all the players in our actual system. So some of them not as high of an overall as they were initially in terms of true overall, but they're all very still talented. A 63 overall for Jaron Taylor. You can't really hope to do much better in the 7th round, but I did have a couple of players that I was targeting. So position changes. King Dunlap will move to right tackle, Donald Penn at left tackle, Deion Jordan moves to the outside linebacker at left outside, and Ahmad Dixon will move to strong safety. And look at some of our undrafted and veteran signings. Some really good players actually fell out of this draft. I like both of the running backs we signed. Camden Lewis actually has around, I think it was 96 speed. He's only 5'7" or 5'8" though, so not the biggest guy, but he is an absolute burner. Maybe could be a return man for us. Zach Craig also gets signed with Ben Hartstock. We need a blocking tight end with Darius Green being our only one. A few cornerbacks are signed. We ended up releasing Ben Gardner so we could sign a Davian Garner, who appears to be a very solid safety. Avery James, he has nice agility, pretty nice speed, not a spectacular player, but is a very solid route runner and good after the catch, so he could be a nice player. Zach Craig, a raw tight end, not much of a blocker, but actually better than you might expect. He does have good speed, very raw as a route runner though. Now, this is one of the best players I found. Somehow he went undrafted, a 75 overall, 94 strength. He could definitely develop into something very good if he could get his pass block up. Darius Woods has nice speed and a good tackler, but not much else, so we'll have to see what he's able to do in terms of coverage and things like that. And then our final impact player that I feel is a Davian Garner. Very nice speed. He can tackle pretty well, some nice hip power, pretty good coverage and good speed. He's not a raw safety, but with some development, I feel like he could be very solid. Now we look at the development traits of some of our draft picks. Tage Wilson, Trevon Lewis, are quick, and then the quarterback that we drafted was a superstar, so he appears to be a very good player, and the heir apparent to Phillip Rivers. So we're into the preseason now. Let me know if you want to see. I was going to do a preseason highlight film of all of our new players, but if you would like to see me just go ahead and advance to the regular season, let me know so we can go ahead and start moving forward again. But I hope you did enjoy a very exciting offseason, a very good draft, filling some holes on this team. I will see you for week 1 of the preseason and regular season, depending on what you guys decide, because I'm out.